I love beeswax candles, and they're kind of expensive, so I wanted to do a little test today to see which setup might make them burn longer. So I've got the same beeswax candle from the same manufacturer. They're in the same environment, same spot, but they have three different setups. The first setup is an old vintage fairy lamp that has the chimney type of design where it takes air from the side and up through the top. We have an open holder, and then we have the typical votive. So my question is simple. I'm wondering which setup will have it burn longer. I'm wondering if it makes a difference. I think that it will, but I want to find out. All right, so let's get this started. Start with this one. The candles are burnt on the tip just a little bit because I find it just helps it get started a little easier when they're charred just a tiny bit. But they were not charred enough whatsoever to make a difference on how they're going to burn longer or not. Candles are just beautiful. I turned off the lights and it just gives a whole different vibe. And that's one of the main reasons I love them. Gonna have some more coffee and I'll update you through the process, see what we find out. All right, so I have the autofocus set and the light exposure set, just to kind of see if we can notice an obvious difference right off the bat on brightness. I can't say that I do. If anything, this is a little bit lighter because it's diffused. And let's just see if there's a difference yet in the wax. They've been burning for maybe like 2 minutes. There's definitely more wax melting on that one and less on this one in the votive. That's a noticeable difference in this votive. Look how little of the wax is melted, that little ring, versus this open one. Look at that, that's considerably larger. I would say it's almost twice as much. And then as far as the chimney, it's the smallest. So the vintage lantern has the smallest amount of melted wax so far of the three. It's only been 3 minutes, but I wanted to see if there was any obvious differences early on, and there is. The light that has that chimney effect has the smallest amount of melted wax. The open candle has the largest area of melted wax. And in second place is the votive that it's closer to the glass chimney, but considerably less than the open candle. I turned on the central air fan so that there's a little breeze, which would mimic what would be typical in the house, when we have our AC on or the heater, just to see how much of a difference it makes with the flames. And check this out. I mean, you can see it pretty clearly from here. Don't mind the clock in the back. I had to leave for a little bit so that doesn't represent how long they've been going. And then the votive flame, it's moving around, but not much. Not terribly, at least. And as you'd expect, the one in the chimney that's mostly protected is just really it's not moving very much. And as far as much wax that's being burned here in the protected lantern, it's not bad. The exposed one is clearly different and definitely melting way more. But I mean, with this air, when I turn the air on, it's really making a difference. And then the votive, it's got a little more melted wax than the protected chimney effect on the vintage lantern. But definitely not quite like that. This is much more effective. And man, once the air came on, the flame really has been flying all around. So, I mean, this is stuff we expect. We know this. It's not like the first time you've probably burned a candle, but I've never paid such attention to it, so it's kind of cool to see. This definitely didn't go like I thought it would. We have the first one that went out, which is the one I thought would actually maybe be second or even last to go out. But we have the old vintage candle lantern that went out first. And the amount of time that it lasted, I'll put it here on the screen. Second was the votive. I'll put the amount of time that it ran on the screen, but that went out second. And then still going is the one that I thought would go first. I mean, with a pretty good bit of wax that's left. So this totally went different than I thought by quite a bit. So yeah, that's interesting. All right, so there we go. I'll put the results on the screen here just for your own information, but I don't really know what to say. That's not at all what I was expecting. All right, so that's just a short little video about a question I had this morning, and pretty surprised. Maybe this encourages you to grab your candles and your setup and see what works better for what you've got going on. All right, that's today's field note.